All right, we are back for, believe it or not, our final full segment here, next 11 or so minutes with our guest, Claire Sisco King, digging into this fascinating topic of these parasocial relationships, as we call them, with celebrities. Let's get right to our phones. Gertrude's been holding very patiently. Let's get to her right now. Hi, Gertrude.
Hey there, Mr. Johnson. How you doing?
Doing well. What do you think of this topic tonight? Pretty cool?
I think it's fantastic.
Good.
I am somebody that got off of the internet about 21 years ago.
Wow.
And
okay.
I had a web page back in 96 or 97.
One of the first, huh?
Well, you know, it was just, you know, mainly it was like, you know, I like this, you know, hey, check this web page out kind of deal. But I was in an IM in a chat room that I had been in over a year, and there was a bunch of writers that hung out in there. And this one person that talked to me for over a year seemed sane until I got a private IM, and I disconnected. You know, I don't need that. I came up here in Nashville, and there was a culture when I came up here. It didn't matter if Roy Orbison or Kitty Wells were your neighbors. My mother said they put their pants on the same way you do, one leg at a time. And you didn't bug those people.
Right.
But also when you were in public, if there was a stranger sitting beside you, and I still do this, and my friends say you don't talk to us, but you talk to strangers. I strike up conversations with strangers, and in my lifetime I've been amazed the moments that I've had. But I take those moments and I don't start trying to find out all this stuff about somebody I might have met or whatever. But I had friends that were groupies back in the early 70s, and one of them I could understand because her dad was a photographer in Hollywood, and he used to take a lot of pictures at the Brown Derby. So that's her culture that she brought here with her. But the other two, I never quite figured out. So one night we went to a concert at Exit Inn, and we ended up at the end of the show with the two lead band members crawling into my car, and I was driving. So I made it through that night out at Centennial Park, and I told them when we dropped those guys at their hotel, I said, I will never go with y'all again. Right. Because, you know, that's just not right. You know, those guys are strangers here, and I just didn't understand the whole purpose of it. Yeah. But I've got a question to ask the professor here. When it gets to the point, I think you kind of covered this, when a celebrity all of a sudden is something that you're not, you get angry at them. And I want to know about the death threats. And one last thing. Is something wrong with me? Because when John Prine died, I wailed about that guy for over a year. Oh, yeah. So, and I've never been to his concert. So is there something wrong with me?
I don't think so.
That
because
deeply about John Prine. So I'll hang up and see what y'all say off the air. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, I'll just say about the John Prine thing. I mean, you've got obviously someone who made a deep emotional connection, probably through his amazing lyrics and music. And, you know, you feel a personal loss.
Oh, I wept when John Prine died, too. I think that's a perfectly natural response that people have because, you know, especially, you know, with artists, you're connected to your idea of who they are as a person, but you're also connected to the works that they create. And so, and you know, who knows what moments in our lives were touched by a John Prine song, or I think about someone like Prince or David Bowie, other musicians who passed, whose lives were really genuinely mourned, and I think that's I think that's a real part of the human experience.
She talked about this fandom, you know. I mean, you think of Beatlemania, right? And so that's back in the early 70s. You know, some young girls screaming and wanting to meet the musicians, and like she said, it comes down obviously to some morals and some ethics about what, you know, she just didn't feel right about it, and trying to understand why would you want these, you don't really know these people.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you don't really know them, although you often feel like you do. And, you know, something like, you know, Beatlemania, the British invasion, you know, and the sort of the images of young women particularly screaming and having these intense emotional reactions to these bands. More recently, you know, I feel like bands like One Direction are associated with that kind of fandom. And, you know, in some ways that level level of fandom is created by media industries themselves, by encouraging those kinds of relationships, depicting those scenes that then encourage other people to have that kind of response as well. But it's interesting. We often think, when we think about that level of intense fandom, it is often young women and Beatlemania that come to mind. But sports fandom often involves the same level of you think about screaming fans and people in costumes and painted faces.
Intense.
So it absolutely is intense, and there's pleasure to be gained from that. Certainly, as Gertrude suggested, sometimes with things like death threats, of course we can talk about levels of relationships that are unhealthy, that are pathological. But again, that's not unique to fame. That happens in interpersonal relationships too. But by and large, I think most people experience their fandom in pretty ordinary ways.
So we get to these celebrity court trials, which there are so many over the last number of years. And again, with technology now, with cameras in the courtroom, following every move, with people outside doing Facebook Lives, I mean, you see so much. This Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial has really shown, some people call it bizarre, these parasocial relationships, but a lot of these fans of either Johnny Depp or Amber Heard who are following this, not only are they feeling connected and feeling empathy with the people they're following and having to be in court and face, and they're taking sides, but they are becoming sleuths and trying to, become a part of the legal proceedings.
Absolutely. So people looking at footage and then backing that up with evidence from prior photo shoots or interviews and comparing these different examples to really look for inconsistencies.
Yeah. Is it normal though? Is it normal or where do we draw the line? Some can be very healthy and it can be a fun distraction and a hobby almost. Where do we draw that line?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's an easy or a clear place to draw the line, right? A word like normal is a pretty tricky word. I think there's probably a continuum of some people that are engaging in sense-making activities, other people that are, really trying to forward a particular belief or ideology where it gets even more intense. But even if we think back to something like the O.J. Simpson trial, I very clearly remember huddling around television. I was in college at the time, and trying to make sense of what we were seeing. We certainly didn't have the capability that audiences do now, because we don't have everything sort of at the digital ready. But yeah, I think that one of the things that's notable about the Depp Heard defamation trial is that it's really been designed as a media event itself. It's running constantly, the coverage on television, so you can watch it if you want. And then, of course, people are able to take the footage, manipulate it, edit it, circulate it, which we're seeing happening especially on sites like TikTok. It's just been the kind of the memification of the trial has been really startling.
Are you watching it, or is it a way for you to study and kind of watch maybe on TikTok the comments, the threads, the chat rooms, just to see how people are interacting together as a group too? And these are strangers who share a common goal.
I'm not watching the trial, but I am seeing how it's being talked about, how it's being circulated, recirculated. And, honestly, Rhori, even if I weren't trying to watch those things, it would be really hard to avoid them. If you're on social media at all, you're probably going to run into some of these videos. And so, I am paying attention. I am disturbed by some of what I'm seeing in the trends of these memes, particularly, in the recent history of movements like Believe Women and Me Too, to see the way that this has been this trial has been hashtagged itself as a kind of justice for Johnny Depp movement is interesting. That a lot of audiences are really kind of marking him as a victim in the case, with a lot of vitriol, sort of hurled toward Amber Heard.
Yeah, and that it can get to that point too, and we're not even talking about, like we said, personal threats and the stalking aspect, but just the nastiness that you see, and I think it has turned off so many people who just, you know, maybe people who feel, boy, I have a connection, but I'm anonymous. You know, and if I've got something to say, even if it's not pleasant, I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. But, you know, it can be hurtful.
Sure, and not just hurtful to the you know, the two famous people involved, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, but you know, today I saw videos that were taking some of the audio from the trial in which Heard was describing you know, an upsetting moment that had been turned into a silly video with animals, you know, sort of dogs playing, and I think about the impact that might have on people who are watching the video, who stumble across it, who have experienced intimate partner violence or gender violence themselves, and the ways in which those kinds of silly, you know, memes can be in fact quite traumatic.
Yeah, mocking something that is extremely serious to a lot of people, and again, not taking, you know, hopefully the judicial system will work out, and I'm not sure if there is a jury. It's not a judge trial. This is a jury, I believe. You know, a jury of peers is going to listen to everything and come to a decision. And a lot of these folks are kind of coming to their own decisions based on, you know, insufficient or incomplete evidence. But that's just the way it works right now, right? And we got about 10 seconds, sorry. All right, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank you very much for being with us, because we'll only have a few seconds when we come back. But thank you, and hopefully we'll have you back and talk some more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Be right back, everybody.